Is Ayrton even here?
Yep, he's just muted.
Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright.
Wait a minute.
Oh, there we go.
I should change my name. I should change my name from Schrodinger's butt sex to Schrodinger's stream.
Okay. Good.
We do not know if we are or are not streaming.
And after vigorous technical difficulties, we are live once again. Link and post. I'm a professional.
All
That's
right,
it. That's
what's the plan, guys?
I hate all of you.
What? What did I do? I just got back here.
I know you weren't here the entire time, and then as soon as I got done saying that we are back live, everything is working, I sent a tweet. No one responded. No one said anything. You're just leaving me out here to hang.
Because I was waiting for the thing. I'm getting back in. I'm doing my job.
You guys figure this out.
I hadn't seen the tweet yet from you that we are back.
I just quote tweeted my original tweet. It probably wouldn't tag you a second time.
We're back, bitches.
There it is. I got it now.
Okay, so we're live. Are we doing this?
We are live. We're doing it live.
Cool.
So, Larry did bring forth a topic for the show this evening. Larry, what was that topic?
Why you need a writer. And you came up with an excellent bridge for that topic, because right now, Mark Millar is proving why he is the most successful writer in comic books.
Okay, well, I also said that my initial response was a one-statement response, and it's about all the dog I have in this fight. Like, I'm a consumer of comic books. If an artist is good enough to write a book, let him write his book. If an artist isn't good enough to write a book, let him get a writer to help him do it. Like, artists aren't known for their organization. And organizing a good story isn't necessarily something an artist can do well. They have so many ideas, and then they draw the comic book, and they want to draw more stuff in that they haven't written, and it doesn't work out. But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, why does one need a writer, Larry?
Well, actually, I would let Rune take point on this one, because not only is he written, he's also edited.
I want you to explain to me your original point. How is Mark Millar currently proving that he's the greatest writer in comics? I need to know.
Because of how
not the greatest,
successful
but
Jupiter's Legacy is.
He's not proving that he's the greatest. I take issue with that statement.
Well, I mean, it's been the most popular streaming show for 7 weeks.
Don Chen is the greatest writer in comic books.
I mean, from a monetary standpoint, he's right now proving he's the best because he's making money.
I mean, I'm watching the show right now. The hype is there, but
is he the best at writing, Larry, or is he?
Well, I mean,
he just luck, or did he just luck out with timing and marketing?
In the current generation of comic writers, I would argue.
Let me take point on that one real quick, if you don't mind. I actually will reference the books that I was reading earlier today, because I started reading Jupiter's Legacy for the show, and then I read all of Jupiter's Legacy, Jupiter's Circle. So
you fell down that rabbit hole.
I did. So apparently Millar has an entire Millar world thing going on. So
that he sold to Netflix.
Yeah, you guys remember Kick-Ass? Yeah, that was Mark Millar.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I know. He's very insistent to tell you that he was the Kick-Ass guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good amount of books to his name. Several of them I've read, and were decent. And getting through Jupiter's Legacy and Jupiter's Circle, like, those are pretty good. Not gonna lie. They're not the best books I've ever read, but I enjoyed them. It was
I don't know. I liked book 1 of Jupiter's Legacy better than I liked Invincible, Volume 1.
Okay. Anyway, continue with your discussion, gentlemen. I'm just saying that Mark Millar, he's pretty good, but I don't know that he's the best.
Well, I think you could argue maybe Robert Kirkman is more successful, but he's successful on older work, and Millar is still producing comics that are making money. Do
you know
Stephen King is more successful?
He's not a comic book writer.
He's written comic books, though.
Is even more successful.
Yeah, but Stephen King's comic books sell.
No, but Stephen King is a more successful comic book writer than those guys. By the strictest definition.
but let's kind of move into
let's
the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Why you need a writer? Why you can't say, hey, I got a character that's basically a rockabilly Lobo who's a bounty hunter. I don't need a writer. And I certainly don't need to pay that writer in a timely fashion.
Shout out Cross Comics in the chat. How you doing, buddy?
So I actually was wanting Rune to kind of take a little bit of point here, because Rune's done more in this particular avenue than I have, because he's also edited stuff.
Well, here's my first question.
Sure.
Most of the time when you're dealing with a campaign, from what I've found, if the person managing the campaign isn't doing everything, they're usually the writer. So I think the broader question is that why don't more artists that want to draw comics reach out to writers? But I think that question kind of answers itself. Just because you have the talent and the ability to draw doesn't mean you have the talent and ability to tell a story. So typically it's the person that wants to tell the story that reaches out to the artist.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean,
but let me throw a counter on that.
Okay.
A comic book is a collaborative art medium, or it should be. If you're not collaborating when you're making a comic book, you're doing something wrong.
Well, there's been many shows where I pointed out the fact that, the biggest problem that indie comics have is that they don't pass through as many hands as professional comics do. Like, you've got editors, you've got pencilers, you've got inkers, you've got colorists, you've got cover artists, you've got writers, you've got secondary writers, you've got backup story writers. Like, there are a lot of people that these books pass through, and a lot of eyes pick out a lot of mistakes, and allow for the creative influence of all of those people to exude onto the book, therefore making typically a more refined product at the end. The fuck?
Sorry, my phone was not on silent.
Wait, are we becoming a call-in show now?
You've got a booty call right in the middle of the fucking show. That's where he's going to be for the rest of it.
So Rune, I mean, you've done a little bit more in this area. Why don't you lay out your reason why people should hire a writer?
So, in order to answer this, I need to actually use our bridging information. And the reason I was being very quiet is because I was looking things up so I could verify my opinions. Because I want to be clear, right off the bat, these are opinions. And once I get started, there's going to be a lot to unpack, and there's going to be a lot of disagreement, and that's okay. But I don't want to lose the actual point, which is we're going to talk about why you need a writer. So, Mark Millar wrote Jupiter's Legacy, and his production company is the executive production company. He is the executive producer. However, looking at the IMDb, at the full cast and credits, he, in fact, is not the only writer. He isn't even the main writer.
I wish I had the gif of You Are Not the Father.
For 8 episodes. There is a story editor, a teleplay, a developer, a teleplay, a staff writer, a teleplay, 2 other people who helped him write the damn graphic novel, and 4 more teleplay writers. Okay? So if we're going to talk about Jupiter's Legacy, we need to be very clear that the book and the show are two different things, and if the show
They
is
very
doing
much
very
are.
well and holding high end for multiple weeks, that's because the show might be good.
But then you want to argue about whether an executive producer plays a similar role to what the chief creative
That
engine behind a comic book would be, whether it's
n-
the writer
no,
or the artist.
that is incredibly dependent on who the producer is.
Yeah, yeah.
For instance, as I have a deep, abiding hatred for the woman, Gail Ann Hurd was the executive producer on Punisher 2004, and her husband was the director. People didn't like that movie, so when Punisher Warzone came around 4 years later with a different director, Gail Ann Hurd was still the producer and used her producer rights to fuck that movie. I mean, that movie already had a lot of problems that were going to be prominent for people who are Punisher fans, right? But she recut the advertising. She
Mhm.
threw out an entire soundtrack of orchestral accompaniment and replaced it with a 2-bit rock metal soundtrack. And she recut the film in post, basically to fuck it, and then moved on to be executive producer on The Walking Dead and Preacher. Because as a producer, she's not invested. She doesn't make comics. She just profiteers off destroyed properties.
Correct.
Okay, so does Mark Millar have an impetus on making his Jupiter's Legacy as good as possible? He might be interested in making it as loyal to the book as possible. I'd have to watch the show to discern that. I wasn't actually on the hook to watch the show, so I'm on the hook to read the book.
Also, Netflix did buy the rights to all sorts of stuff he's produced, so
Right.
he wants to make sure that the opening gambit does as well as possible.
It's also entirely possible that behind the scenes, unknown to us, in a back room with people with smoking fat cigars, they said, "Mark, we like your work. We like what you've done. We're going to pay you a fuck ton of money, and this is our mechanism for making you shut up and let us put a second pass at it because you can't be trusted with the material, and we have proof."
But Church and I will get a little bit more into that because Church has
Right.
read the comic. I'm at least vaguely
No,
familiar with
that's
the
the
comic.
thing. That's the thing. I was under the impression, because there was a conversation, that I was
Yeah.
supposed to read the comic for today's show.
Yeah.
And I was going to let other people get their stuff out because I knew as soon as Church started talking about it, there was going to be dissension in the ranks. And the reason is because when we get to writing, there is also a difference between a piece that is a critical darling. It reads well to critics, right? And fan darling, something that is loved by readers, right? And again, the show may have vigorous fan support. It might be really great. Okay? I have read the book as a reader. It is excrement. It is awful. I hate it. I could not finish it beyond 3 issues. And I'm going to tell you why. It's going to lead back into why we're talking about why you need a writer.
Mm.
Jupiter's
Enjoy
Legacy,
it, sir.
in my opinion, doesn't mean we have to agree, is a more cynical, lazier Watchmen again. I've seen this story before
Mhm.
again. All right?
I
People
view it
get
differently.
no. Let me
What?
finish.
Okay.
People get powers. People become assholes. They give birth and raise asshole children because the narrative is about how America doesn't work, how families don't function, how we eat our youth, how awful everyone is because no one is good, nothing is great, nothing is capable, everything is cynical and self-destructive, and this is the opinion of middle-class, indolent, self-satisfied, smug little fucks who honestly believe, that if the common man got power, then the common man would turn into shit like everything else. Okay?
See,
It is
I read
fucking
hold on.
awful.
I read that a little bit differently. I read it more as in like no matter how altruistic and how much you want to do good and make the world a better place, that the old, whatever you want to call it, libertarian, I guess, notion that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
That's not a
is the
libertarian.
downfall.
That's not a libertarian ideology. That's Machiavellian.
Okay, whatever.
That is older than dirt.
I hear it. In today's age, I hear it more. Anyways,
And people don't know what the fuck they're talking about, man.
Not the point. Not the point. Anyways, when I read it, I viewed it more as no matter how altruistic and for the greater good and stuff, that this sort of power and absolute power will corrupt anybody, no matter how quote unquote good.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Hold on, Ren. Hold on. Hold on.
Right. Hold on. Let me finish.
Right.
Which, no matter personal opinions of Mark Millar that we might have, I think is kind of an interesting point to his writing style. The fact that you and me, Rune, have these two very drastic views of the same work that we both read recently.
Here's the thing, and this is why I invoked
real quick. I want to let Larry get in.
Beginning. Okay.
No, I'm gonna let Rune keep going here for a little bit.
Well, I want to get in too, but I want to go around the table, so you got to get in.
I get it. The reason I invoked Treebird right off the bat is because for all of its fold flaws, okay, the one weird thing about the book, not the movie, fuck Zack Snyder's abortion, the book Watchmen, the comedian's a piece of shit, but the comedian was always a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Some of those early characters that die off in the background are racist psychopaths, certainly. But Dr. Manhattan, we can almost understand a character who is so knowledgeable and so outside the human experience, he doesn't understand the human experience. We can understand people who are basically good, but are also outside their depth, and so they fumble. We can understand being so driven with zeal and the idea that you want to do good, that you're a malevolent murderer and you can't help yourself. But all of these characters, and I feel weird saying this, are on some level somewhat empathetic and likable. You feel bad for them. You feel bad for the scenario they're in.
I disagree.
But here's the thing.
Real quick, guys. Wrap it up.
Then you look at Jupiter's Legacy, okay? Oh no! That fucking indulged rich kids with famous families have to live up to famous family legacies with superpowers in America. Those poor people that gives them some kind of right and privilege to commit vicious murder, mind rape, and brutal destruction because we're right and we're the youth and you're wrong and you're old.
Well, I mean, I don't think Millar's narrative says they're right.
And let him get in.
That is absolutely the perception that they present at the beginning. I'm sure over time and across situations, the suggestion is that they're wrong. But then again, the suggestion is that everyone is wrong because no one should have power, because no one should have the ability to change their world. Because if they did, they would intrinsically fuck it up, always, forever. It's trying to do Machiavelli, but it is so cynical and self-falating that it can't do a real narrative because the actual story of value would be good people who fail because no matter how good they are, they can't do everything. None of those people are good. None of those people are capable.
But the inspiration Millar had when he went
let him
into
get in.
Story.
I do not.
Go ahead.
So Millar was reflecting on everything that happened after the big financial crisis in 07 and 08. And that was his reflection on the world. So you're a commercial writer.
Yeah.
You have this idea, I want to do this story about this.
Yeah.
And you're selling it to major comic book companies,
right?
Major distribution companies. So you have to sell it as a Watchmen knockoff.
Sure.
So he was able to construct something to tell the story he wanted to do using a way that makes it marketable.
Okay, I gotta jump in.
Carry on, Church.
Okay, first off, whoever says that it's akin to Watchmen, you're wrong. It's not akin to Watchmen. It's akin to Kingdom Come.
No, this is way better than Watchmen.
This is Kingdom Come.
only without the positive
But-
Right.
happy part.
Right. This is Kingdom. This okay.
Church.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's the thing, just for clarity. I don't like Kingdom Come either.
That's fine. That's completely okay. You probably wouldn't like Earth X either, because it's all the same
Probably
story.
not.
It's all Alex Ross's
Right.
vision, and it's all written by Mark Waid.
Right. Which brings us to
Yeah.
But
which brings us back to it's Watchmen.
the thing is,
Watchmen, Kingdom
no,
Come, Earth X, all the same
No,
story, all garbage.
no, Watchmen and
no.
Kingdom Come are not
Mm.
the same story. This is a
Oh,
second
yes, they
generation.
fucking are.
I will argue
yes,
with you
they
on this
are.
one. No, Watchmen is not a
They're-
second
they're-
generation story. Watchmen is not a
Yeah,
story
no.
about the offspring. The offspring story is
no,
what Kingdom Come comes through.
No. The notion of offspring, the notion that there are distinct generations relative to superheroics in this context, when you're talking about Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and their bullshit,
Yeah.
to the Watchmen, who, while they may be based in pulp characters, are
Uh-huh.
a DCified post-60s interpretation thereof, is
Mhm.
ephemera. They are the same story because guess what? Superman's that
it's-
fucking old.
It's not, because the Watchmen looked at the second generation, and while they did nothing wrong, they were still prosecuted. In Kingdom Come and in Jupiter's Legacy, the second generation gets it fucking wrong. And that's what I'm getting at. In Watchmen, you're supposed to side with the second generation. You're supposed to root for Rorschach. You're supposed to root for Night Owl. You're not supposed to
except
root
the
for Brandon
thesis-
and Chloe in the beginning of Jupiter's Legacy.
Except the thesis
Well, I
of
mean-
Kingdom Come and the thesis of Jupiter's Legacy is that the reason that second generation got it wrong is because the first generation got it wrong. It's good
No,
old
well,
Christian
no,
sins of the
no,
father.
No. The reason the second generation got it wrong is because they were jaded by the altruism of the first generation, and were
No,
just blowing
he's
them off
you're
trying to be-
you're saying the
No,
same
they were-
thing.
No, they
You're
were
sa-
trying to be.
You're saying the same thing he is. You're just going in a roundabout different way. He's right. You're right. It is the sins of the father. It's just the sins of the father where they were perfect. It's like being Jonathan Kent if Frank Miller was writing him.
Well, no, I as
You guys can all see that,
hurts me
right?
at a level.
of Jupiter
That
Legacy,
hurts me at a deep level, Church.
They're just.
I'm right though, aren't I?
They're trying to be edgy woke hipsters, and anything that's old is
Well,
bad.
yeah,
They tear
but
it down just
at-
because it's old and it's not.
At this
it's
point-
not, you know,
But here's the
modern.
thing: that's
Go ahead.
not new.
No,
That's not new, and
that's
not
why
a
I
thing.
brought up Kingdom
Because
Come. That's
back
why I'm
in the-
saying this is not a new thing.
Not even Kingdom Come. Not even Kingdom Come. In the 1960s, at Woodstock, hippies were saying, "Don't trust anyone over 30." Okay, and when was Treebeard doing his drugs and planning out Watchmen?
Well, look,
It's not new.
I don't trust
Never
anybody
was.
that takes over 30 years to write a book, so George R. R. Martin's going on the list.
But let's get back to what is actually
Yeah.
pertinent here. Is Mark Millar's impetus was, I want to address the housing crash and the inadequacies of the Goldman Sachs and whatnot, then in fact his story is fundamentally wrong from the get-go because he's coming at it from the wrong angle.
You said sax.
Yes, I did.
And also,
Uh,
I want to point out
he-
that the Jupiter's Legacy comic book is nowhere near as Marxist and as blatantly upfront with the idea that capitalism is a bad thing as the show is so far. Halfway through the show, there's already
I mean, that
been
would-
like a newspaper headline that said capitalism is dead.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. Again, it's got a mess of extra writers. So whatever,
Well, that's the show.
message
In the-
Millar
in the-
had,
In the book,
Yeah.
you read the first 3 issues, right? So you got to see
Yeah.
the point where they went to the island, and you got to see them like
Yep.
fighting a guy, and you got to see.
yep.
Did you
I
see
got
the?
up until
did
they
you see the
murdered
super-
Utopian, and then I
Yep.
didn't
Okay.
care.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing,
Um,
because after they do that, the story shifts and actually gets a lot better. So you missed out on the best part of the first story.
Yeah, it gets way better after that.
Your mouth to God's ear.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though.
My
Here's the
mouth
thing.
to God's cock.
I mean,
Oh!
that's between you and God, man. You're sacrilegious. Your problem. Or I'm
Pew
sorry.
pew 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 pew.
I'm sorry. Let me
Chim
correct.
chings.
Sacrilegious. Sacrilegious. Anyway, if Mark Millar wanted to address the housing bubble and the 2008 economic crash, you don't do that from the top. I'm not interested in a sad sack story about how hard it is to be rich in the crash, because guess what?
That's not what the story's about, though, Rune.
It
you
is.
didn't read
It
far enough.
absolutely
No, it's
is.
not. No,
No,
no, no,
it
no,
no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no.
It's
It
not.
is.
No, it's not.
Let him argue his point. Let him argue his point.
The post-war superheroes who came from wealth, because remember, Rich Boy walked away from his rich house with his rich wife because he saw an island, right? Had their post-war comforts in the form of their.
They lost everything in the crash of '29. Like they were facing.
No, they didn't. He
was
away.
facing.
He didn't.
He was facing foreclosure. That's why he walked away.
Right, which is already apocrypha. The vast majority of wealthy people who already had extreme wealth did not lose a damn thing in the crash. But that's neither here nor there.
In the spirit of debate, though, let him make his point before just shutting it down, saying no.
But that's neither here nor there. No. He's saying that my position is not supported, and it absolutely is. Okay,
you got to give him a chance to argue his point. He might convince you. When we
pick up the story after the island, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the same stuff that the Authority deals with. Superheroes as pop icons. That's rich people with endorsements.
See, but Rune, you didn't read past when they killed the Utopian, though. It completely shifts tone after that, because I didn't like it up to that point either. But I kept reading it because that's what I do for this show. I read shit that I don't like for longer than I should. And it entirely switches to Chloe, whatever the fuck his name is, and then their son now being born and them being refugees and hiding in Australia, and is an entirely different mindset of them understanding
Hutch. His name is Hutch.
Of where Hutch, thank you. Understanding like that, yes, things aren't going the way they should be and everything sucks, but also realizing that her brother and uncle, I'm forgetting all the names, but they've imposed such a dire police state across the entire world, even though they're only in charge of America, that something needs to be done. And eventually, between their kid getting in trouble from the U.S. secret ops people, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, that they come forward and start to actually fight back.
Right, but my problem is...
Hold on.
All right.
And the ending of book 1 is them deciding that all they have left to do is recruit a bunch of villains to try and stop these people that have ultimate power, that have been corrupted by this power through their altruism.
But the problem is that
philosophically, it is a very good story talking about the corruption of power. No matter how, quote, good of a person you think you are, if you get ultimate power, it will corrupt you.
The problem is that presupposes that power descends from above.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's not.
No,
that's not.
No, you just said that a group of superheroes who were already mismanaging their power because they were corrupted had an internal conflict where several superheroes escaped and then gathered supervillains, people with power,
not several,
to fight the power.
Okay, the plot line is, since you didn't see it, Brandon and Walt, the Utopian son and brother, plot against him and murder him. You saw that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
At that point, Walt and Brandon take over the U.S. government, and it skips ahead to the year 2020. Chloe's on the run with Hutch. They have a son.
Right.
She cleaned up her act. They're not using their powers. Right. She works in a pencil factory. He's the janitor. The kid's like losing at soccer games to fit in.
And they hook up with a bunch of supervillains to take the power back.
No. It's to rid the elites of the power they have is their goal.
And do what with it?
That yet, so I don't know how
And do
it
what?
develops.
They become
But
new
that's-
elites. Definitionally.
Not necessarily. You can
Definitionally.
Well,
cannot
the idea is
elites and
the
not
idea
become yourself.
the idea is that Chloe sees the value of her father's mantra at that point, where she goes back to his code of non-interference with politics and government.
You can't say that power corrupts and then absolute power corrupts absolutely, and then infer that the people with power will only have power until they remove the people in power and not become corrupt.
No,
we've all seen what Robespierre looks like. The divine tyrant doesn't work.
Anyway, this has got. Hold on, get
to having power. Those
real,
are two
real
different
quick.
things.
Real quick. I'm going to give you both 2 minutes apiece, and then we're going to get back to writers.
Right.
Okay.
So, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I didn't realize this was going to be as controversial of a take as it was.
Go ahead, Rune.
My point is that if this is where Millar comes from for his story, and this is what we are supposed to be gushing over, all right? Heroism comes from the common, not the elite. All right? Normal people finding the strength to do the right thing. You can't be the normal person if you already came from the extraordinary. That's not how that works. And if power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, then absolutely it's going to corrupt you. Okay? Even though it is prosaic and abused and it was implemented really badly, they at least addressed it in the Nolanverse. The whole live long enough to see yourself become the villain or die a hero thing. Okay? Because ideally, heroism is a tragedy. You shouldn't exist in a world where you need heroes. People shouldn't want to be superheroes. They should want to be Joe Normal. Because by being a superhero, they are fundamentally removed from everybody else, and it doesn't go.
Well, that's the thing that you miss by not reading through the rest of it is Chloe and Hutch. That's what they wanted. They gave up their position as heroes to live normal lives because they didn't agree with the way that the heroes were doing it.
Were they also depowered?
Because their son was in trouble, they decided to reveal themselves.
Right, but when all is said and done, are they dead?
No.
Well, not yet.
Are they depowered?
No.
Not yet. We've read what, six issues? Or read 6 issues?
I've read all of it. No, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. Is their kid alive?
Yes.
Is their kid depowered?
No.
Then he ain't changed shit.
Why?
I'm going to make a point, and then we're going to get...
Because you've already said...
Okay.
I just want to... You've already said the basic thesis is power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Therefore, above all other things, power corrupts. Yeah. The only way to not be corrupted is to not have power in that scenario.
Nope, Ayrton, nope, you're done. Nope, you're done. You had your minutes. Everybody had their minutes. I'm going to say one thing on the topic, and we're going to get back to the topic of writers, because apparently we can't have a civil conversation. we can't have a civil conversation.
On the pulpit.
The final point is I never...
Church or Pope Church?
Both. I never subscribed to the fact that absolute power corrupts absolutely, because the main character, Utopian, in the first couple of issues completely goes against that attribution, because he has absolute power. He is the strongest and the best, and he is not corrupted. It is the inferiors who feel like they're living in his shadow that become corrupted and want to use their power for more gain, and don't want to use their power to help other people. And that is the ideology that his daughter is trying to move towards in the end of the comic. So, Rune, as a comic reader, I would suggest you should probably check out the last couple of issues in that trade and form a full-fledged opinion of the first volume, because the turn does happen at the point you stop reading. And I do think that the story kind of makes a little more sense towards Ayrton's projections after that point. That's all I have to say on the matter. Now, Larry,
Well,
get
with that
back
in
to
mind, because we're turning to writers.
So
Get back
let's get back to writers. So,
Right.
first of all, a comic book is a project, ultimately a vision, and there's one person whose vision is taking the lead. But in a multiple collaborator relationship, different people bring different things in. Some people challenge people. Sometimes there are people who have an antagonistic relationship with each other, like Jack and Stan did.
Right.
And their antagonism went a little too far in places, like with each other's wives.
But that antagonism also led to some of the best works we got out of Marvel Comics during that era.
Yeah, but the reason I wanted originally Rune to kind of start off with this, because Rune also has a better perspective because he's done editing on like what the writer brings to the collaborative process to the artist.
Well, now that we've got, in addition to a couple of other subjects, the idea that there's that differential between critical darling and commercial success and what they refer to as cult hit, where the fans really like it but it doesn't sell. And of course, the golden goose is the one that is both critically loved and the fans like it and it makes money, because that happens too. I wanna address this idea that we should start with actually what doesn't work. We're gonna talk about what does work in the writer artist relationship. And what doesn't work is what's going on at Disney and what's going on at Warner Brothers in movies right now, which is reflective of bad comics. Which is when you have a property, 90s era Marvel pre-buyout during the bankruptcy is a good example of this. When you have a product and instead of a unified vision, you rely on a committee making decisions based on focus group, where it's like, okay, we're going to take part A and part B and put them into slot C and make book D, and then we're going to put out products. Fans will buy products and get excited for next product. That doesn't work. Never has.
What does that have to do with the
will.
writer, though? Like, the writer doesn't have any influence on marketing. That's a
The
completely
writer
different
absolutely
department.
does. The
No,
writer absolutely does.
no.
Do you want to
No.
know what my job is or not, Church? I mean,
No, from a corporate perspective, no. Like, you, as a writer, you don't get to decide whether the logo goes on boxers or socks this week.
no. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about when a focus group sits down, when a writer's room sits down, okay?
Yeah.
And no one writer or one individual is
of the book,
organizer.
The sales of the book, but merchandising isn't sales of the book.
No. Let me finish. You want to know what my job is? Let me tell you what my job is.
Yeah, okay.
When a group gets together and sits down and says, we gonna make book, right? And then tries to make it like an assembly line with no one clear vision of what that idea is supposed to look when it comes out at the back end. Okay? Right? And every voice gets to put in their 2 cents that will be equal or worse, less valuable than every other voice. Right? Because they don't actually understand their art form, because writing is a discipline, right? It doesn't work. We've seen what books look like when they're done by committee. And they are very static, they're very bland, they're very boring. And it's not a visual problem, because sometimes the art can be amazing and the story is shit. Okay? What a writer's job is, what the writer's job actually is to coordinate. They are, in fact, a liaison between the creator and the artist, on the premise that those are 2 different people, to create the framework that the artist will use to present the information.
Well, sure.
That's what the writer is supposed to do.
But
it gets crunchier when they are the same people.
I still think that in the grand scheme of things, you're not, even if you're in charge of the campaign, right? Okay, so let's take the scenario into account. You, RuneKnight, decide you're going to put your book out.
Okay.
You wake up one morning and the Tooth Fairy brought you $100,000 for that last molar that fell out.
Right.
And you decide, I'm going to use some of this money to put a comic book out. I'm going to buy all the art up front. I'm going to do the writing myself. I'm even going to hire an editor I'm going to hire Larry to edit my book just to make sure that I don't fuck it up.
Right.
And I'm gonna handle the entire campaign myself. Everybody's gonna get paid. They're not gonna.
Already did what I would do. Continue.
No. I'm saying in this scenario, this is what you do.
He's trying to get all of the complicated things that are problems are all taken care of because magic money.
Right. Magic money got you an artist. It got you an editor. You don't have to worry about the campaign raising money to pay these people. All you have to do is worry about either breaking
and
even
Magic
or
Johnson will get you HIV.
That's correct. Magic Johnson's money will cure it, though. But anyway, you're on the track to produce your own comic book without anybody else being able to tell you can't do that. Okay. So you start thinking about it, and you go, okay, well, in my campaign, I want to include a bookmark for people that back.
Right.
I want to include a pen. A lot of people are doing like little pens. Right. I want to do a pen. You know what? I have the money to do a patch now because enough people bought the book. I'm going to do a patch. You're not wearing your writer's hat when you're making those decisions. You're wearing the publisher hat. You're wearing the board of directors, the CEO.
Well, that's more marketing and sales.
You see, you've created a condition that exists, but you've created a condition that is not accurate, because that's not a situation where I'm a front runner for a program, right? What you've just described is I'm George Lucas, and we know why that doesn't work.
Right, but that's the thing, that's the situation you're dealing with most indie comics right now, though.
Yeah.
When you deal with somebody like
that's indie comics, I agree.
When you deal with somebody in Marvel or DC, Dan Slott has no fucking say over what Spider-Man merch gets produced that month. He just gets to write the books.
Right. But I'm not talking about the merch. Because the thing is,
that was the example you gave at the very beginning of your argument that I got hung up on. It is.
No, it's not.
Can I hit the pause button?
Please, Larry.
I think we've kind of veered horribly into the ravine again.
I'm three quarters of the way through a bottle of Woodford. Of course we are.
That's our problem.
Here's more my original vision for the show. It's like we need to explain to people why you should have a writer and not just be the whole shop guy doing everything. Why you should bring a writer into the equation.
Which is what I'm trying to get at. Okay, and
I think though you're overthinking your sales pitch a little bit.
I'm not, but the problem is I got Church halfway through a bottle talking about merch.
3/4 of a bottle. You said merch. Don't tell me you didn't. You said it.
Let me finish. I said products. Get excited for product when a bunch of corporate shills decide what a product is.
The point is, though, as a writer, you're not making those decisions. The product was going to happen regardless of whether or not you're writing the book. In a Marvel or DC sense of the word,
what do they tell you when they give you a job, Church?
They
bring you. No, they come to you, a commercial artist, and they say, "I need you to draw this product by this date."
They don't tell me anything. They ask me how cheaply I can do it for.
You are drawing a product, are you not?
No, I'm creating a brand. Like I'm looking at someone's brand and I'm trying to give a vision for it.
A brand is a product. Let's not quibble over whether or not we're working on product. We're making product here.
But the thing is, the point is, though, me as an artist, when I make a logo for somebody, I'm not looking at it in a sense of, okay, well, I need to charge for every hat they're ever going to make or every shirt they're ever going to make.
You're not. I'm not. I'm saying if we want to talk about what doesn't work before we talk about what does and why you need a writer, okay, there is a difference between a dedicated writer who knows what the fuck they're doing, okay, and a committee of
Well-
writers, a committee
well,
of talents
I can
whose job is to make product.
I can put that into perspective for what I do for a living, right? Larry, Rune, even Ayrton, you guys can all type in logo design right now and find a website based in India or Saudi Arabia where once you get involved in an email conversation with the people that run that website and take payment via PayPal, they will send you a library of upwards of 1,500 to 3,000 different elements you can combine and font types you can use to create your own logo. And you just mix and match.
But
Or
by the way, how dare
you can pay me
How
150
dare
bucks.
Hold on. You know for a fact I'm in marketing now for my company.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Or you can pay somebody like me.
All on my own.
You can pay somebody like me 150 bucks to ask you a few questions about your business and your brand and create a logo that tells the story of what you do and uses the correct font pairings because I have that education. And the difference is you pay 400 bucks to create your own mix and match logo, or you pay 150 to get something personal. But the austereness of it is that these companies are sponsored by Google, or they come up on the Bing suggested list, or they pop up in your email inbox because they have the ability to buy your shit from Facebook.
I'm getting at why this is so freaking key. All right.
Yeah.
Is you have two opposite ends of this spectrum on a continuum. All right. On one end is what you were describing previously, the George Lucas. George Lucas is an industry power. George Lucas can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, he can send you the Adobe clip art library and let you mix and match your logo. Or pick the parts of an elements of story you want.
Or
don't tell me how to live my life.
That if any intern looks at George Lucas in 2000 on the eve of Phantom Menace's creation and says, "George, are you going a bit overboard?" George will just have him fired.
So
George answers to nobody. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, or not. Let me finish. Okay. The other end of that spectrum that I'm trying to get at, okay, is Solo, right? Where a writer's room said, okay, we need to have a Star Wars movie. What do we need? Well, we need Han Solo. Why? Because Han Solo is cool. But we need young Han Solo for the kids. Okay, so what do we need? We need space western, theft, adventure, dinosaurs,
There
barbarians.
wasn't a writer's room for Solo. There were two guys, a father and a son.
Same principle applies in that they were just throwing together, as Church would have it, clip art concepts and saying if we put enough of the jigsaw puzzle together, we get successful product. That was their goal.
Let me use Solo as a good analogy for where we've gotten off track. So Solo, the script was written by father and the son, Lawrence Kasdan and his son. Okay. The script was extremely dry. So they brought in the guys from the Lego movie. So the guys from the Lego movie, they're like the artists for the comic book. So what they do is they do things with scenes. They put in a few little small bits of connective tissue to take the structural framework, the highways, the byways, and all that of the story, and make something work with it. But then the creative direction was coming out of their perspective and not the writer's perspective. But since the writers were aligned with management, they got fired, and then a subservient artist got brought in.
Right. What I'm getting at is the notion on corporate, and it's a notion that on some level people in indie have, okay, that all of those pieces are interchangeable, and they're not. That is the first step, is that it doesn't work, because a writer and an artist and a creator and a editor and a director and a copy editor are not interchangeable components. Not on the book, not if you want it to succeed. Okay? That was my entire point before we had to go circling around this 6 times.
We'll circle around it as many goddamn times as I want to. It's my fucking show.
Show, and you're drinking it into the ground, Church. Setting it on fire.
Look, if I had drank it into the ground, it would have sank like 2 years ago. Fuck you.
So let me let me use the movie analogy, although
yeah.
it's not an apt analogy.
Larry, do you mind if I slide in with a music analogy real quick?
Please.
Music could be a good analogy if you're using the one I'm thinking you're going to use.
What do you think I'm going to use?
The double-ended dildo.
Well, I think you're going to use like the difference between a songwriter, a performer, and an engineer.
No, but not exactly what I was going.
Okay.
So, we all know the song "Sweet Home Chicago," right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Out of the three of you, who do you like? Do you guys know who actually wrote that song?
I mean, isn't that like an old blues song?
Yeah.
The version I remember hearing first was Ray Charles's version, but I'm sure there's like an old timey blues guy from the 20s who did it first.
So it was written by Robert Johnson in the 1930s, recorded in 1936. Is the original version of Sweet Home Chicago. Every single blues player that I know has done a version of that song, and every single one does a bit differently. So you could almost view this as, in comics vein, Robert Johnson is the writer, and Eric Clapton, Buddy Guy, the Blues Brothers, me, I have my own version of it. Whoever, we're all artists taking our various interpretations of that writing and putting our own artistic creative spin on that written product. And I think that's kind of something that's missing in comics, if that makes sense. Because it used to be bigger, I feel like, in the early to mid 2000s. Like, I've read 4 different versions of the origin of Thor in Marvel Comics, and they all use kind of the same base but slightly different artistic ideas, if that makes sense. So, like, is that not a valid thing? Like, the artist kind of gives you the various idea that as a visual artist in the context of the song Sweet Home Chicago, an audio artist, taking your own kind of ideas and throwing it on the verbal cues of what the artist has, or what the writer is putting down.
Well, there's an inherent difference between writing an owned property and writing your own property.
Well, I think where I was coming from when I originally proposed this topic is we see a lot of people who are taking point on projects from an artist perspective who aren't.
Let's just get it out in the open. Let's just get it out in the open. Ethan Van Sciver, an artist, wrote Cyberfrog, and it suffered because of it.
Yes.
I
think that book could have been a lot better if Ethan had a writer.
By that same metric, Jawbreakers was created by somebody who wasn't even a writer, and it suffers.
You're not wrong. Jawbreakers 2 did fix a lot of those errors, though. Like, we see progression and talent there.
But
we just haven't seen Cyberfrog 2.
But what I was getting at, because music is actually a good example of this, okay? I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of the band Warrant. Okay.
Can you take me high enough?
Wait a minute. Warrant had
no. Incorrect, Church.
Warrant had an album called Uncle
Are you
Tom's
sure?
Cabin.
Yes, that was Damn Yankees.
Oh, fuck Yankees.
Warrant had an album called Uncle Tom's Cabin that was sexy and aggressive and a little bit trashy but fun, very, Guns N' Roses for the time period. But corporate to the corporate mindset, what sold was you have your intro song, you have your anthem, you have your ballad. You must have these 3 things. These 3 things are
and Hairspray.
And the bands that do them are interchangeable. And when you look at Wasp at a certain era, when you look at Warrant at a certain era, who did Cherry Pie, which is what their album Uncle Tom's
Oh,
Cabin became.
that's right. That's the song that I was looking for.
When you look across several bands and you wonder why all these guys look the same and why do they all look like girls, it's because
She's my cherry pie.
Because their writer room was not making its decisions based on what was good music. It was making their decisions based on what was good metrics according to focus groups, where they're like, here, listen to this. Here, listen to this. Here, listen to this. Please fill out our survey and tell us what we think.
See, but that's different between like corporate, fingers in every single pie and asshole that they can be.
Well,
and creative expression, whether you're a writer or an artist.
Well, here's the problem that I have with the entire metric of the argument. Who the fuck thinks you don't need a writer besides an artist smelling their own farts or someone who just can't afford one? How much is it a page for a writer? How much is it a page?
Well, there's two separate questions there, but I will give you the first answer. Who thinks they don't need a writer? Everyone.
Okay, well, let me ask this.
I want to be clear.
Let me be clear.
Let me be clear. I can write music. I can't write.
I'm not saying they don't need a writer. You said who thinks they don't need a writer, and the answer is everyone, because they don't know the difference. Because they don't know the difference between penmanship and writing.
I don't think that's true because you don't have a. Shut up, Ayrton. Shut up, Ayrton. I don't think that's true because for the simple fact you don't have artists beating down writers' doors to write their books, and you don't have a lot of artists putting out their own books. Like, it might be 1 in 10.
You just inverted your position, Church.
I didn't.
You did.
I'm saying...
You asked who thinks they don't need a writer, and I told you, everyone.
But
you're saying, but we don't.
I don't see... No, I said I don't see artists banging down the doors of writers. And I don't see artists... But I don't see them putting out their own books either. Again, everybody that we've interviewed on this show, 99.9% of the people were either doing their entire book themselves or they were the writer.
Right. I'm getting to that because that's question number 2 was how much is it a page? Now, are we talking a comic page or are we talking hard text?
Yes, no, a comics page because that's what this show bases itself around.
All right. We're talking comics page. Let me get you. Actually, no, I've got it open here because I was converting it over. So I've got 6 pages of the high-flying Hombre Lobo. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me get you a word count. Now, this is not 6 pages. It's actually 6 pages. I mean, this is 6 script pages of scriptifying. I need actual numbers for this.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure your connection is good.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Discord being a bitch.
A little bitch.
Right, cut and paste.
Hey, I responded to you on Twitter, Larry.
I saw that.
Counting my words here. All right.
Yeah.
I have 1,230 words.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you charge
Let's
per word?
Assume you do. But assume I'm going industry. Okay,
Yeah.
let's assume I'm going industry standard. Okay.
Yeah, what would you charge Marvel Comics per page?
Yeah, no, give me a second. Somebody who's better at math than me, multiply 1,230 by let's assume we're corporate for a minute, a nickel.
Okay. 1,230 times point
a nickel.
0.05.
0.05. That's $61.05. Or $61.50, yeah.
Right. That is how much of a book I have written fiscally. Okay. And if I'm
what
doing
kind
a
of time?
graphic novel,
how long did it take you to write those? How long did it take you to write those 6 pages?
We're not even up to time yet.
No, that's not the point, though.
No. I'm trying to make a point though. Like as a graphic designer in a minimum wage, not a minimum, but in a low wage area of my field, I barely make over $100 a day.
Well, here's the
Could
thing,
you
is that,
write that in under a day and recomp the other $40 to get to my living standard?
Oh, if here's the thing, if I wasn't being a half-ass, okay,
Never
if I
half-ass two
wasn't
things.
being a
I'll ask one
half-ass,
thing.
it is if it is technically it is incumbent upon me to produce far more than that
Okay.
in a given amount. But that's not what I want to know. What I want to know is, okay, now that was for 6 pages. Okay, but that's not an actual book. That's a book in development. That's not the final money. So, 1 page of this script, removing title because we don't need title, is 442 words. Okay? So, you do 442 words times 40, because that's a small graphic novel. That's going to tell you how many words is your total page count, or how many pages is your total word count, and then you multiply that by a quarter, or by a nickel. Yeah.
So 440 times 40?
840?
Yeah. 442 times 40, and then multiply that result by a nickel.
Oh, wait. Let me do that again.
That's $880.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
okay.
is how much I
wasn't too off.
that is how much I would theoretically get for 40 pages, a full graphic novel, in
A
a small one at that.
Okay, I was about to say a full graphic novel is
it's a small
typically
one.
about 90 pages plus. So
Oh, hey, if you want to,
you're talking about a square. No, you're talking about a square bound, a double issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the actual industry standard for single book is 20 pages.
22,
Okay.
but yeah.
Well, you don't count. The thing is, you don't count any page that is cover and back, and you generally
inside cover. Well, it depends on the amount of ad space, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It really depends on ad space because you have to adjust for ad space. But regardless.
Anyway, yeah, at 40 pages, you're just under $1,000, and you have to be able to put that out in 2 weeks.
Right. So
you're operating on about a $1,900 a month schedule, just as a comic book writer.
Right. But now, mind you, the 0.5 I just did, that's for a that is industry standard for an independent writer sending out a hard book. As I understand it, the big corporations are slave wages. They're far less, probably a penny a word. Okay, but then again, that's why they work on multiple books simultaneously. You work like the devil to make up the difference, so you can actually eat. The vast majority of indies, especially first-time indies, look at that metric. The idea that in my full amount of money that I have to generate for my book, $1,000 of it has to go to a writer and say, well, it's not so hard. I don't need him to do a job. I can do his job.
Well, I disagree. I don't think you can do that job. I think that somebody who understands the nuance of writing a comic book.
Yeah, but your question wasn't, could they?
That wasn't my question.
Your question was, why do they believe this? That's why they believe it.
That was Larry's question. My thing is, I always think that a comic book needs a writer. I think a comic book needs a writer and editor. I think they need a penciler, an inker, and a colorist. I think they need somebody to do layouts. I think they need somebody to do printing separations. I mean, I think about 12 people need to be involved in the creation of every comic book that I read. However, I've gotten some comic books that only one person were a part of besides the company that printed the book. And I can't say that I've been impressed more than kind of let down in certain regards. Like more often than not, I'm let down when a single person takes on the endeavor of creating a comic book.
So, Rune, let me just posit this scenario to you again.
All right.
I'm gonna go back to music because
Sure.
Let me be clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Go on. The stage is yours, sir.
Get it the fuck out, Ayrton. Ayrton, are you alive?
Oh, you said let me be clear. I thought you were going to add something.
No, I was making an Obama reference, you prick.
Alex Jones wants to hear you. Let's go.
Okay. So, I did some studio...
I don't like them putting pauses in their statement that turn the freaking chat gay.
So, anyways, I did some studio work for a guy a year and a half ago or so. And I probably did a total of 8 hours of work playing guitar, right? Which is something I just do sitting on my couch when I have nothing else to do. And my only creative contribution is he was playing me a track and he was saying, like, I feel like this song needs something more and I can't figure it out. And I started playing like something on my guitar, like I was like, oh, maybe something like this, and he was like, yes, that, let's put that in there, and then restarted the track and had me record it. Right, about 6 to 8 hours of work, something like that. He gave me 200. Okay.
Okay.
And,
I mean, I don't see any YouTube people in here, but okay.
So, he gave me, I think I got maybe $150, which is way more than my time was worth. I'm not even close to a professional musician, and
Right.
the first 5 hours we did was kind of figuring out, setting up my equipment and getting all the recording, all the mics set properly and stuff like that. But do you think, as a writer versus artist, like, do you think there's an equivalence creatively between the two? Like, should I have been paid more for the work I did, or because they were his songs and I was just adding my artistic flair to them? Like, is what I was paid a fair rate versus what I don't think he's actually made anything off of the album that he's released yet.
Well,
but
that depends on where you fall on the Schuster Warner Brothers legal battle.
Well, no. I'm talking totally indie. Like, he did this entirely independent, and
here's
hired me to do some stuff entirely independent. That's
where
we're talking.
But Ayrton, here's the thing: Superman was a failing book. Okay, it was failing.
Yeah, because Superman's retarded.
Right, the Shooters come in. They say, "Hey, we'll sell you this origin story. We've got this Kryptonian origin story, which is really just a retelling of our Judaic mythology with a sci-fi flair." And they're like, "Okay, we'll buy that." And they paid them at what at the time by the standards of that time was a fair wage. Okay, and then made a fuck ton of money off of it.
Okay.
And they also paid the Siegel and Schuster to continue working on it after they sold it.
Right. And Siegel and Schuster have their estate, now that they are both long dead, have continued to dig into DC for more money for the right to use that thing that they sold for decades. Okay.
Okay.
We must then apply this.
I don't see your point.
Well, if you feel that you got paid enough for this work and you're willing to walk away from it, you probably did. If, on the other hand, you believe that if he takes that work, puts it on the electronic media, and makes a fucking mint, that you are owed a little fraction of that mint every time that song gets played, maybe you didn't get paid enough.
I don't actually, because I view it as, hey, if somebody else hears his music and is like, hey, that guitar bit's really cool or whatever, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that was my buddy Ayrton.
That's an artistic.
I'm gonna get more work out of that.
I mean, maybe, but by and large, that is an artistic decision, not a business decision, and that's not expressly writer relevant, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, that's fair.
We're not even.
I'll give you just real quick.
Yeah.
The fact that my guitar playing and tone and sound and style is very, very unique. So if somebody likes that kind of sound, I'm like the only person, at least in the state of Michigan, that can do that.
But what I'm getting at is,
which I'm not saying to sound condescending. I'm very weird.
What I'm saying is we're not even
particular.
I'm just saying we're not even getting into how writers get scammed and how writers fuck themselves. Those are very different subjects that are intrinsic to the writing industry across the board.
Well,
we're just talking about what those writers do.
Well,
but I feel like we're not selling anybody, even though I don't know how many people are actually watching this. I don't think we're selling anybody on why you need a writer.
I'm trying to get to that by getting interrupted by all this side stuff.
So actually, remember our last show with Don and Bill, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a writer. I can't write for shit, but I want to write kind of like a goofy parody song to go along with Beard Zerker to send over to them, right?
Right.
So, a buddy
you should
of mine,
write it. You should write it as if you were Beard Zerker.
So, a buddy of mine, he's a poet and linguist and is also a writer and stuff. We've collaborated on projects before. So I'm working with him on trying to, what song do we want to parody? Do we want to do Heart or Lynyrd Skynyrd? Something kind of the 80s rock sort of style is what I'm leaning towards. And if personally for me, as the person with the connections and the, creative and production drive of this, if any money comes out of that, like I'm giving him half of it. So is this maybe less of an issue of whether people need the other side of this creative fields, writers, artists, letterers, colorists, whatever, or is this more an issue of just morality?
Well, no,
going like, hey, you did all this work, but I'm paying you this much money because this guy only has this much money. You're running a little bit better, so I'm going to throw you an extra $5.
Yeah, but Ayrton, now you're running up against the barrier that is the abstraction itself, because you're saying, does this apply across the board? It's like, no, that applies. Your interpretation applies to music because music's a different discipline. It doesn't.
That's why I'm asking, because that's the creative field that I actively work in.
Yeah.
I don't actively work in the comics field. I just read comics and do this show and get drunk.
Right. In any kind of concrete writing, which is novels, comics, anything that isn't poetry. Okay, and I have to separate poetry from music for this comparison.
By the way, sorry, I'm leaning towards. I'm leaning towards Ramblin' Man, going, Lord, I was born a bearded man.
Real quick,
Lord, I was born a Ramblin' Man.
Yeah.
Real quick, to the writers in the stream, Larry, Rune.
Mm-hmm.
How much do a page of art cost?
It depends on the artist and what you get.
Yeah,
you
but
get some
just
decent quality
give me an
art
average.
You can get some really good quality art out of India and certain other countries in the $70 to $100 range.
Per
you
page?
Can get people with per page. You can get some decent art out of people with actual experience with major comic companies. in the $150 to $300 range.
Okay, so let's meet in the middle and let's call it $250. So, a 40-page comic book would cost less than $1,000 to tag a writer to, but could cost upwards of about $10K for an artist. That's what I'm hearing right now.
Yeah.
It's worse than that, actually.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's like a bad case scenario. It's not the worst case scenario.
As I said, we're not actually even up to talking about how writers get fucked and how they fuck themselves, because one of the biggest problems in the writing market,
Didn't somebody say double dildo earlier?
idea of is the idea of exposure. Right now, at this exact moment, there is a serious problem in the writing industry in that there are many fronts that are perfectly willing to take your work.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely willing to take your work for no pay.
Let me
dumb fucks.
Let me just break this down to you,
Okay.
Rune.
Well,
when you live in a hold on, Ayrton, shut up.
Real
Shut
quick.
up. No, you can go after me.
Okay.
In a small town, as a graphic designer, I help out people who I know personally, and the first thing I tell them is when they ask where you got this logo, find somebody in your family that owns a copy of Illustrator and tell them they did it. Because I don't want fucking exposure. I want your money. I don't even want my name associated with this logo because you might come to a company that I work for, and that company might decide that I'm taking money out of their pockets by working on the side. So what I want is I want your fucking money, and I don't want your fucking exposure.
Well, that actually ties into what I was going to say. So what the studio work I have done, it's been more like I wasn't expecting to get paid. I was doing it to get get some exposure as a studio musician, and the people were just like, hey, here's here's $100 for sitting here and dealing with my bullshit for 8 hours.
What I was trying to get at.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Is you have people right now who are desperate to get in the industry, who cannot find a paying venue, who can find non-paying venues, and will write 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 words for free to support somebody who's going to make money off of their words for the nebulous idea that maybe someone somewhere will see their name in right, and that might translate to getting paid.
I'm sorry. I just
go ahead.
I've performed in my lifetime probably tens of thousands of hours of unpaid work as a musician in hope of somebody possibly noticing me, and I've gotten $150, maybe $200 in total for the work I've done.
Yes,
writing 50,000 words is,
well,
is nothing.
No, hold on, Ayrton, shut up. Shut up. No, you're wrong. Because here's the thing: as a graphic designer, I have worked uncredited for thousands of jobs, and you know what? I got paid for every fucking one of them. Because you know what? It doesn't matter if my name's attached to it as long as my bank account can pay my fucking bills.
Yeah, I don't care about my name being attached to it. I don't give a shit about that. But I've been performing on stage since I was 6 years old, and performing music specifically since I was 14.
Well,
okay, I'm say this. I need
to
go help my mom.
Let Rune get in real quick. Let Rune get it. Hold on. Let Rune get in.
Rune needs to tap out. So
yeah,
let him talk.
Let me say this about 40,000 words don't matter. I wrote 40,000 words. I wrote an entire game accessory for Sanguine Games. Anyone watching this? Sanguine fucking Games. All right? I have the
Fuck those
contract
guys.
still, saying that they would print me, that they wanted my book, and they sat on it.
Tell those guys to suck on my asshole.
They sat on it for years, from actually publishing my work anywhere else because I had a non-competition clause. I couldn't shop my 40,000 words anywhere else.
No,
Okay,
Brune.
40,000 words fucking matters.
Let him get it out, Ayrton.
He's got to go assist his mother. So man, let him do his bit.
I go assist my mother before I have a Schrodinger's accident.
So
I'm gonna shred into your cock and balls.
So let's let me kind of take this whole meandering car crash back to the kind of point that I wanted to bring to, and I think Ayrton expressed a really good point.
Can I finish my statement real quick?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not saying what you've done, Rune, and I know your way. I'm not saying what you've done is not worth getting the money that you might deserve from it. What I'm saying is, from that creative sphere, sometimes you just kind of have to do shit and not expect money from it. I didn't get any money from being a musician. Until I was 20.
I completely disagree with that particular ideology.
Well,
I would rather not be famous and make a little bit of money than get famous making no money.
I would rather make money and not be famous. But as somebody that's in that creative sphere, sometimes you just have to accept.
No, you don't.
Do shit.
You don't.
Hold on. Hold.
You don't.
Hold on.
No, you're wrong. No, hold on.
Finish.
No. Because the thing you're pointing out is that you have performed for free, where I promise you didn't have to. But you could have argued and said, I will perform with no cash payment if you give me 10 wristbands, 4 for my band and 6 for my roadies, that give us free drinks for the night. And that's payment.
Okay, that's I guess if you count that stuff that I've gotten over the years, yes, that counts as payment. But I'm talking like actual cash going into my hands or my bank account. I've made like $200.
Okay, well, when you consider that bars charge $8 for a single ounce and a half of what is it, Glenlivet or Johnny Black, when they charge $8 to $10 for a single 1.5 ounce pour.
For black.
Well, that's a 1 ounce pour.
No, that's an ounce and a half.
But
they're not paying.
Anyways, not.
Go ahead.
You're already putting me back to like the 90-yard line on the wrong side of the field.
No.
To try to get this ball back and get the ball to the end zone.
No, it's Larry's turn, Ayrton. Shut the fuck up.
Hold on. Let me finish my point. So most of the years I was working unpaid was high school, early college, right? I'm at the point now that I have enough of a reputation and I've built my connections and got, have my voice, if you will, in writing or music, to the point that I'm not gonna perform for free. I'll go to a bar and on an open mic night, play some songs and people buy me shots. I'll take that as payment, whatever. But if I'm gonna do some serious, actual music work at this point, I'm at the point that like this is my rate. This is what I want. If you want the sound that I produce, my unique sound, this is what you're going to have to pay for. It's taken a long time.
Well, here's
building confidence, developing my voice. Back when I was 16 doing this shit, I can't justify
When I was 16, yes, I did
back at that age.
No. When I was
requiring money for
when I was
for what I
16,
was doing.
I did plenty of logos for people that I was friendly with, that I was close to, that went to my high school, that kind of thing. I did plenty of logos for no charge. Now that I'm 35 and I look at life as a father, and I look at life as somebody who has to keep a bank account with a positive balance, I look at somebody and I say, okay,
Yes.
well, you want a logo? I'll do you a logo, and the base cost is $150. Now we'll talk after I put in $150 worth of work, and you can go from there. Now you pay $75 up front,
Yes.
and you pay $75 when I deliver, and then we'll talk about changes you want to make, and depending on those changes, I'll either charge you $10 or $100, depending on the way you look at making changes.
Yes. And
But the thing is I don't have a name. There's not a business card that gets passed around that says Church of Failure on it. There's a notable aspect to the fact that I take $150 of your money, and when I take $150 of your money, I deliver you something that represents your fucking brand. And
right.
usually,
Now,
when I tell people, hey, here's your logo, here's your film separations, here's your embroidery tape, here's what you need to build a website, here's your business card layout, here's your promotional products layout for pins and koozies, and if you need something else, call me. It'll probably just cost you about $5 if you want a new product. If you need something for something that I've already done changed, it's free. Just hit me up. I develop a relationship with these people, and I tell them, don't tell the company that you're going to get the shirts from who did this, because they'll either say, oh, well, he's associated with X company that is local and we hate, or hey, he works here, so you have to pay us the full fee for your artwork because he took business away from us. So I want 0 credit, but I want all your money. So I want you to keep coming back to me for everything that you need. And I'll charge you less than everybody else charges you for it because I am an independent contractor. That's the difference between somebody like me and a comic book writer who's saying, well, I need the accolades and I need the money.
All right. So
let's
try to get this back on track.
Well, I think that
Please.
I think that this translates to the fact that regardless of whether you get credit, regardless of whether you get noticed, you fucking need to get paid. That should be the first and foremost.
I feel right now like I've just watched Maximum Overdrive, the feature film
No,
directed by Stephen King.
You got here
by cocaine.
You got here late. You just watched Lil Spurt music video.
All right. So let's kind of back up for a minute. So, Ayrton,
AKA Lil Spurt.
What's the central reason that makes jazz? That there's a framework of rules around it, and then there's chaos. And then the chaos comes back into the rules, right?
Well, it's structured chaos.
It's structured chaos.
How I would describe it.
So, if you want a good analogy for the artist-writer relationship, the writer's the structure, the artist is the chaos. And it's that chaos that brings the little flavor, the little spice, the little texture to the piece of art.
Yes.
So the problem is when you're all chaos, you get something like noise metal. or screamo.
Or actually, I might send Church the demo of the song I've been working on.
Oh no! Look at Tom King's Twitter. One of his kids is reading Secret Wars, and the other one's reading a Pokemon manga.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
I mean, the kid who's reading the Pokemon manga is probably going to have the better time.
I hate you so much, Larry. In fact,
Yeah,
get out of
bro.
my show. Hold on, let me kick Larry
Well,
from
it's
the
not because
chat.
I don't like Secret Wars, but the kid
No,
who's reading the Pokemon manga, whose father's Tom King, is going to at least to have some happiness in his life.
I'm gonna turn your volume down to 0. That's what I'm gonna do.
So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the artist is responsible for the chaos in the music, so to speak. So they don't know how to structure it. And that in turn means that they are doing like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to smash my toys over here. I'm going to smash my toys over here. But there's nothing that threads all of the toy smashing together.
Not going to work.
So I'm going to use something I will generally do when I'm structuring something is I build up to where the action set piece says 1 page of action, make it look cool. Here's what should happen in the fight.
Okay.
Then you transition out of the action, transition into your next story beat, depending on how you're pacing the action. Then it's like, here's another action beat. It needs to end up like this. Now, sometimes there'll be like an action piece.
Sorry. Church, I just texted you what was supposed to be put in the Discord, but didn't work right. Anyways.
And sometimes, like, there'll be a sequence between, like, here's a fight sequence, here's a non-fight sequence that's also action, but I want the character to parkour up a set of stairs inside a building.
Right.
You didn't send me anything, Ayrton.
I literally just texted it to you.
Oh, okay,
but
I got it.
The thing is, in turn...
Okay, there you go.
A writer can say something, and then a competent artist who's a visual storyteller saying, like, I get what you're trying to do, but the art, you're not going to be able to connect with the audience when you do this. What if we do this? And then the back and forth, you build the structure of the story.
Yeah, and that's the same thing I was kind of getting at with kind of my story of doing some studio work is the writer, if you will, was like, here's kind of my vibe. This is what I kind of want to do, and I was like, okay, how about something like this? And he really liked that, and gave kind of the particular emotion and vibe and groove to it, and it's another thing. Like writers are very, very important, because again, I'm not a writer. I can't write for shit. I can arrange. I can write music.
You can't write beyond what you say with your own music playing in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, technically, it's Pink Floyd, but it's my version.
Shut up, you bitch.
And in turn, you have an illustrator who says, hey, if I bring in this colorist here, these colors can go with your writing theme. And then you start thinking multi-directionally in how you're telling your story. You have a certain type of illustrator drawing a certain kind of action with a certain kind of color setting the tone, and then you put your words in, that's your unifying framework. And to Church's point, you have a layout person who can tweak how everything's laid out. You got the letterer who can do things with fonts.
You've got checks and balances. You've got people that can tell you that you're fucking stupid. Yeah. And everybody needs somebody that has the balls to tell them that they're fucking being stupid.
And I think one of Rune's points is there's also the person who's clearly the creator. Like, did either of you guys play Knights of the Old Republic 2?
Well, hold on. I think that the general concept of the what's the word? The spirit of this show is not why you need a writer, it's why you need an editor. Because, some artists can be talented writers. Because let's look at Earth X and Kingdom Come. Those are both stories that are the same fucking story. One done in Marvel, one done in DC. Both are done by Alex Ross. And the reason that Alex Ross did them both is because it's his fucking story. He just recruited Mark Waid and whoever the poor sap at Marvel was to put it on the written page. And
now, I also want to present to you the difference between a committee artwork piece and a piece by a single creative vision. Church, I just sent that to you in the DM.
Okay.
To share with the audience.
Oh. What particular DMs?
All right, I am back.
Oh, okay, the Discord
So
DMs.
while you're pulling that up, let me just bring up. So, again, going back to talking with Don, I'm trying to find a good parody song to send him for Beardzerker, right? To kind of fit that era. And I have to find something I can play in my
ZZ
style.
Top.
And, well, hold on. I think you'll like this. And I think I've settled on Ramblin' Man.
We got you up, Larry. Go ahead, Ayrton.
And I think I'm gonna transition to, instead of Lord I Was Born a Ramblin' Man, to Lord I Was Born a Bearded Man, doing the best and shaving whenever I can. It's so far like lyrics I come up with, right? Because I'm not a writer. I'm a composer. I write the music bit of it, and a buddy of mine is very good at writing words. He's a linguist, does all that stuff, and I would say there's a good balance between, like, hey, I can't do this, like I can't write words, right? But if you give me good words, I can put the music to it and make it sound good. At least good enough. I can record and produce it enough, and then send it off to a producer, who I know a couple producers.
Well,
excuse me, who can take whatever I end up producing and make it sound better and send it out as an actual product. And I think that's kind of the thing we're missing in this discussion, is the symbiotic relationship between artist, writer, editor, colorist, letterer.
Well,
all of these things are important. And
I have an analogy.
Again, I brought this up to church numerous times. I used to just read and enjoy comic books, just casually or whatever, is kind of where I was at when we started the shit. And now, after 2 years of doing this goddamn show, I can't read a comic without paying attention to, like, shading, the lettering, the font they use, the size of it is, are the word thought bubbles taking too much space on the page? It's fucking annoying, but and I hate church for this, because I would just read whatever, like, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. I'm not, this comic, this
first off, Ayrton, hate yourself. Hate yourself. Hate yourself. You never had to respond to my tweet, bitch.
That's true. I was drunk and I was being a smartass. I wasn't
All right,
expecting
so
to actually say yes. But anyways, Rune, but before you go,
yeah, I have an analogy that I think will.
It's one of those things, like, okay, yes, it's all important, all of it: writing, coloring, lettering, artists, in music, writing, composition, producing. It's all the same shit, but Does it matter to anybody besides autistic spurs like us on the internet? It doesn't really matter. As if it grabs people's attention
Ayrton,
and people enjoy it,
Ayrton,
doesn't really
Ayrton,
matter.
Ayrton, Ayrton.
Yeah.
I understand what you're getting at. Please shut the fuck up.
That's what Dillard says to you every time you get on there.
Yeah, I know. No, see, you asked about the writing job, not the art. So now I have that. Now I am in the Dillard position.
I have my last shot. I have my last shot here. Actually,
well, no. I have a analogy that I think will get us back on track for anyone that actually happens
back
to listen
on
for
track.
100 minutes.
We have 15 minutes. We have 12 minutes left in the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, good. Let me give it, and you can. The faster I get it done, the sooner you can tear it apart. Shut up.
Oh, he'll give it to you.
So
X gonna give it to you. He gonna give it to you. X gonna give it to you. He gonna give it to you.
So let's suppose you have someone who is not an architect, who is not a moneyed person, but they really want the moment of building their own house. Okay? Like they're really into this idea. Okay? Now sometimes that person can be the architect. And sometimes that person can be the draftsman. And sometimes that person can be any of the other millions of jobs that go into building a house. But they want to build a house. They also are well aware that there are pre-formatted you can buy, right? And that there are, like, how-to guides, Foxfire books and the like, for building your own deck, building your own house, building your own picture frame. But they want to do it by themselves. They want to have that feeling of, I built this from the ground up, and I didn't need anybody's help at all.
What if you're just...
I didn't have to say psych at the end to prove that it wasn't gay.
Shut up.
I didn't have to ask for a Klondike bar.
Dude, where I live now, me and my dad built on our own just because it was cheaper.
Wonderful for you. I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
So that person has taken on all these jobs onto themselves. Okay? And they're like, they're unsure where to begin. Where do we start? I don't know. I've never done this before. I don't want to fuck it up. Right? Well, the person with the idea is the guy that wants the house. Okay? Now there's a contractor. That's the artist. Right? Or maybe they're a friend who honestly really wants to build this house for their friend. Maybe they're really into it. Maybe they love building houses. Okay? But however it's done, they know the practical mechanisms for building a house. But they can't design one. Okay? And when they ask their friend, hey man, what do you want to go in this house? They're like, okay, so like I need a bathroom, and I need a living room, and I need a kitchen. And you're just like, okay, but what do you want it to look like? They're like, I want it to look nice, and I want it to have like marble, and I want it to have like this nice flower motif that I saw in a Macy's catalog, right? And I'm like, yeah, but how do you want it arranged, right? This person has no idea, right?
Well,
or they have some of an idea,
not the builder.
Right. So, what is the writer's job? The writer sits down with the person that wants a house. I'm like, okay, tell me about this house you want to build. And then writes down the notes for every single thing that they want in that house. Okay? And then uses their knowledge, because they actually took the time to study the design, layout, structure, imagery. What does this look like theoretically? Right? And they write it down. They write down a structure, room by room. This goes in this room. That goes in that room. That goes in that room. This is how you populate these rooms. Okay? But because they are only a designer, because they only wrote down the design, okay, they are not the person who's going to build it. And frankly, even if they could, right, it's not their artistic touches that they have to make manifest. It's somewhere between the original creators, right, and the final product. So they take their designs to the contractor and go, okay, buddy, this is what he wants, and he's not quite sure how to make it happen. So I've approximated it as closely as possible can you get this done? Here's the budget, right? Or the contractor already knows what the budget is, like, well, we can't do that, that, and that, right? And so the writer would have to go back and rewrite. Thing is that in writing, as a specific discipline, if you didn't know this, back to the day, people, you only read about every third word when you read. If you ever actually sit down and read every single word of something, it is a profound effort, right? Because generally, as a reader, you know the structure of sentences and words and how things go. You can generally suss out how things are, so you don't notice words like said or I or, things like that. So what does an editor do? Because an editor is basically a writer as well. Well, an editor is literally a second pair of eyes who looks over what the writer has written for structure and clarity. Right?
Yeah.
So this is the guy that comes to the designer and says, all right, look, this is really good, and I want to get it to the contractor's hands as quickly as possible, but these rooms are really gaudy and don't balance well with these other rooms you did. So go rework those. I'll take what you've got to the contractor and we'll get building now. Okay?
Well,
and that's what those different roles do. By way of building a home. That is how a comic gets made. Okay? And every one of those sub-disciplines that Church has outlined, colorists, typesetters, all of those people are basically double redundancy on various tasks that are those primary tasks, right? And the confusion that people have is that when they look at those people at the top who are actually brilliant and can do multiples of those jobs, they assume, well, that's everybody, right? Everybody can do all those jobs, so I can do all those jobs. And the answer is no, not everybody can do all those jobs. Some of those people are just that damn good.
Well, and it's we kind of agree actually on this. as much as we disagree, because where I live now, me and my dad built. Neither of us are designers or architects or whatever. We were just like, this is the space we have. This is
Right.
where we're going to put shit. This is how it's going to look. This is how it's going to work. And it's whatever.
Right.
I'm about to, renovate my RV so I can, get out of fucking Michigan because it sucks here. But out of a physical architectural medium, I agree with you. Some people are better at visual, audio, linguistic.
You got 4 minutes. You got 4 minutes before I close down the show.
I had the word, but I fucking lost it.
But ultimately, Ayrton, because I think where I'm going and where you're going is the same place. What a writer does in a comics context, okay, is structural reinforcement to facilitate the idea that is the final product. The reason, writers, sure, can do dialogue, sure, but by and large, the reason you don't see what writers do isn't because, many writers are fucking shit. But isn't because it's unimportant. It's the under the hood stuff. It's the stuff that gets the artist to where the artist can do their best work. That's the goal.
3 minutes.
I mean, that was it. I believe it is Church's final moment, and to tell us all to fuck off and shut up because we're stupid children.
Well, I mean, none of this had anything to do with Secret Wars, so I have no dog in the fight.
Oh no, it had everything to do with Secret Wars.
It doesn't.
Church, it does, because Secret Wars is an
Doom,
American classic.
Okay.
Doom wouldn't take this argument over to save his life.
But Church. Secret Wars is proof of what happens when the artist, the author, and the creator are in the right place.
I will shove the biggest eggplant I can find so far up your ass.
I mean, whatever makes you happy, man. I mean, Ayrton, you and that eggplant can be very happy together. No, I'm serious.
My ass is too small to accept an eggplant. So
I'm serious though. I'm saying Secret Wars, if we're talking the original Secret Wars, is a perfect example of the fundamental basic idea and the final product are two separate things, and it took the confluence of excellent writers, excellent artists, working in unison.
The fundamental basic idea of the original 1987 Secret Wars was the toy company coming to Marvel saying, "We want all your top heroes and all your top villains in a book series together, so we can sell toys based on that idea."
Right, but Church, that's just it. The toy company has no idea how to tell that story. They have no idea how you make that story work, right? Well, the artist can draw as many super battles as you want with as many super villains as you want. They don't. It's not even that they don't care. It's that they can just make random fights. But how do you construct a narrative out of that? That's what the writer does. That's his job.
No, see, Rune. That actually is the point. Writer and
you button your bottom button before you send me some shit like that, Ayrton. Fuck you.
Anyways, so
hey, look, I sent my buddies in real life. I sent them a picture of an alligator with a knife sticking out of his head, and anybody that retrieves that knife becomes the king of Florida, because that's how the rules work. But beyond that, ladies and gentlemen,
unfortunately, you see, the problem is you have to fight Wesley Snipes to be king of Florida because he claimed that in his tax evasion trial.
I don't think he claimed that.
He actually did his tax evasion trial. He claimed to be king of Florida.
Oh my God!
Did he pull? He didn't pull a knife out of an alligator's head. He's not the king of Florida.
No. He was just so fucking high that Wesley Snipes was his own Florida man.
On the crack. However, it is midnight, and regardless, go ahead.
So,
good night, everybody.
Good